So finally, I wondered when it would happen, but it's finally happened. Daniel Hannan has finally scurried from his beneath his rock out to write his response to whatever madness is going on in the Trump world tariffs at the moment. Because yeah, I did a video yesterday and I said, currently the sell-offs have stopped. By the time that video went out later in the evening, the sell-offs had resumed. Given the fact, I think when the American markets reopen again in a couple of hours' time, we may very well see a continuation of these sell-offs. We may very well see the markets go like that because people are just desperate to buy the dip. Who knows? Who knows what we are about to witness? But oh boy, this is where we bring in Daniel Hannan, the guy who for over a decade has been wrong about every single prediction he's ever made, right? Let's get that right. Because remember Daniel Hannan's big prediction about Brexit and that the world was going to head towards this free market fundamentalist paradise that he had envisioned, and that Britain and Brexit would be like the first thing to happen in unlocking this free market libertarian paradise. Never happened. Anything, the exact opposite has happened. And because of these tariffs that Trump has in place, Daniel Hannan absolutely crashed out big time. So it is no doubt back comes Daniel Hannan, and now he's come back with a series of ideas that if only Starmer would do these things, somehow we could ride out these trade tariffs instantly. And if you know anything about Daniel Hannan, if you followed the channel for all this length of time, you probably know some of the stuff that Daniel Hannan is about to say. And you won't be surprised by some of the things that Daniel Hannan is about to recommend. So let us descend into, honestly, Daniel Hannan's unraveling worldview that is going crazy. And there's two comments I want to go over after this, because it gets, and people do realize that, yeah, Daniel Hannan has been wrong about everything he has ever predicted for the past decade. So let's get back into this before we continue. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Like I say, please do remember to click the like and share button down below. There's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on then into this. From Conservative Home, Daniel Hannan, the 6 tests that will reveal whether Starmer is serious about equipping Britain for Trump's new world. So, and oh yeah, he's now the president for the Institute for Free Trade. Oh boy. Yeah. He's always coming up with leading some new bizarre think tank. But there you go. Anyway, let's get into this. So, if, of course, as Keir Starmer says, the world is changed utterly, his policies must change with it. That might sound obvious, but it is human nature to react to sudden and dramatic events by saying, this proves whatever I previously thought. So, we know the current Labour government, very, very big on government intervention. They have pretty much said that in the past. They've done stuff now that reaffirms that. I would not be shocked to see a renationalization of British Steel. Now, they've said they would like to see a commercial option pushed, but quite frankly, with the way the world it is at the moment, buying something like that is a heck of a big gamble and risk to buy. I think we are going to end up probably seeing British Steel being nationalized at that point. So we'll see. But back to this. So the danger is that Labour will react to Donald Trump's tariffs by trying to double down on things it already wanted to do: subsidies for favoured sectors, higher spending, and industrial policy. An industrial policy? say it's not so. You mean the government goes, here's what we do good, let's invest in it. Here's what we'd like to do more of. Let's, help companies and develop so that we can do those things. Shock horror. I mean, we are expecting the industrial policy to drop, possibly within the next few months. However, given all these Trump tariffs, would not shock me if that now gets delayed, because I think you might see some of that stuff maybe have to be written. Who knows? We'll see. We'll find out. But I am interested to see when that industrial policy does finally drop, though. So, in fact, the upending of the world trade system means that Britain now needs to make itself more competitive. We must urgently now cut spending to boost growth. And yet, cutting spending to boost growth was the mantra of 14 years of Conservative government. Did they achieve that? No. They did not do that. And we have never seen a country successfully cut spending, resulting in some sort of magical economic growth. You look at Argentina right now, where you've had Milei deploy drastic cuts to the Argentine economy. Have those worked? Absolutely not, when you look at what is going on in Argentina. But Daniel Hannan will say, that is fantastic, we should copy that, regardless of like the results that have gone on because of those cuts, what that has done in Argentina. He doesn't care. Like I say, Daniel Hannan, free market fundamentalist. So long as the line goes up, he is fine. So it is hard to exaggerate the impact of America's lurch into protectionism. Trump has now hiked his effective tariff rate from 2.3% to 21%. Higher than, of course, the Smoot-Harvey tariffs of the 1930s, which turned the Wall Street crash into the Great Depression. Again, a lot of people are talking about that as well. Those interwar tariffs, and of course the chaos, and of course the conflict that they engaged, shook the free world into action. The New Hampshire resort of Bretton Woods in 1944, representative of the democracies hammered out a new agreement to prevent a slide back into the beggar my neighbors protectionism. Bretton Woods system held up well for 80 years. The world got richer at an unprecedented rate, but the entire structure rested ultimately on the United States. And now that's gone. That is gone. So Britain, as an open economy, he continues, did well out of it. When other than that, when it was forced to adopt the ECC tariffs after 1973. Wait, what? What? That's we joined the ECC because we were not doing economically well. The idea that we had to do that is, yeah, that's a rewriting of history, but we don't have time to go into that. Needless to say, you can go and see how Britain's economic performance was after World War II, right up until we joined the European Economic Community when it became the EU. Our fortunes turned around after that. But there you go. Anyway, precisely because we are an open economy, we will be impacted by America's lurch into protectionism, even if we manage to get a trade deal over the line before the tariffs come into effect. Trump has announced the lowest level of tariffs on UK exports, 10%, the baseline he reserves for allies, and half what was he posing on the EU. Even so, it would cost us the equivalent of £20 billion. Like I've said, these tariffs, even at 10%, will hurt us. Daniel Hannan recognizes that. Most of these Brexiteers recognize that. We'll see if he sells it as some sort of Brexit benefit, but there you go. But worse than, of course, any hit to our direct imports would be a hit to our American investments. We are the third largest investor in the US, and our companies will be hurt both by these tariffs and their component parts by the fall in the consumer spending. Again, which is true. Like I say, these tariffs do hurt us in this point. So at least Hanan is probably being quite honest here about the damage that these tariffs will do to us. So at least, we can, on that point, he isn't extolling the virtues and falling into the stupidity trap of, oh, well, we only got, hit once. Luckily, weren't hit twice. Anyway. That will, of course, be true whether or not we manage to negotiate an exemption. As the US plunges now into recession, it will drag its trading partners down with it. The US is our largest market, larger than our second, third, and fourth, Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands, respectively, combined. Representing reprieving our, of course, exports from tariffs, though, it might make one or two EU companies invest into the UK to avoid a higher tariff rate, but it will not shield us from an American downturn. So, why then, given the fact that we have such good relationships, why not improve it with the EU? If the US is no longer our friend and ally, why then do we not seek to do more deals with our allies and our closest, trading partner being the EU? just a suggestion there on that. So, what then should we do? Most immediately, we should avoid the temptation to retaliate by imposing tariffs on our own people. It is to this credit of Starmer and Jonathan Reynolds, his business secretary, that they have not listened to the British industry and now refrain from mutilating our commerce to prove a point. If our American cousins shoot themselves in the foot, we should not blast off our own toes in response. Again, I agree. Doing nothing, even though people are like, oh, but you're just kowtowing to Trump. Doing nothing here is generally the best move. I agree with Hanan on that. Doing nothing is actually possibly the best move. Now, it's not that we shouldn't retaliate eventually, and maybe not even retaliate with tariffs, because we could go, well, okay, we're going to put a tax on American digital companies, Facebook, Meta, all that. We could do that. It's not a tariff, it's a tax. At that point, Trump can boo-ha-ha about it. He may respond with a higher tariff rate. I don't know, but we'll see. But there are other things we can do besides a tariff. I've already said I am very, very much for it. If you want to start boycotting American goods, go for it. There are apps you can download to do that. Go crazy with it. I'm doing it myself at the moment. But back to this. This, of course, might sound obvious, but the leaders of Europe, Canada, and China are now even responding to Trump's tariffs by imposing their own gun muzzles towards their own shoes. Again, they are doing this because America has hurt their economy, especially Canada. Canada obviously was going to respond with its own tariffs because the American tariffs hurt its own economy. So it was inevitably going to respond. However, China and the US are now probably going to be locked in a trade war. We'll probably see that play out over the coming weeks. And as I've said before, it is going to be a match between who has the most power. Is it the American consumer or is it the Chinese supplier? And we will see that game played out over the coming weeks. Europe still has not responded, but it still may very well do. In other ways, it may not impose tariffs. It may do something else. We don't know yet. But so far, Europe has not responded because I think, again, like the UK and everyone else, we're watching to see what happened. We already know that Europe, before all these tariffs came into place, offered it a 0-for-0 deal. Trump rejected that. Right? So we'll see what happens on this. So Labour, of course, may secure a swift trade deal that will avert at least the 10% tariff in exchange for cutting tariffs that we inherited from Brussels, lifting taxes on US tech firms, the allowing of non-chlorinated American chicken and hormone-free American beef onto our shelves. And again, that will not go down well. Like I say, that will not go down well. I don't think lifting the tariffs is a good idea necessarily. I don't think lifting the taxes on US tech firms is a good thing either. I think we should be taxing them a heck of a lot more because I think they are only on like what 2-3% or something like that. It's not exactly high. Like they should be a lot higher, quite frankly. But there you go. And like I say, this, if you allow this, this destroys UK agriculture. This destroys UK farming completely. Because at that point, either A, British farmers then have to start adopting that exact same mentality that Americans do, and that will massively hit our animal rights. And we know full well the British are very, very much like having our animal rights protected. People have been primed against this for years. Even after Brexit, the idea that the Conservatives wanted to sell, chlorinated chicken, they knew how bad it was with the voters. I don't think even, Starmer should allow this. But even then, if that is the price, what Starmer should do is go, okay, all that American chicken and beef, you now have to have an American label on it. I think that's what they should do and bring back the Buy British campaign. It's an idea, but even then, I still wouldn't be for it. But even if you had that thing, I'd be like, well, at least we know what is American and what isn't at that point. But then again, we've also seen America push in trade deals for non-labeling and to get rid of labeling rules. So we'll see. We will see. Like I say, it's a waiting game. But as I've said before, I'm all for diplomacy. I'm all for talking. Let's see what happens. Let's, if there can be a deal be made, let's exactly see what is being offered. So far, we don't know what exactly is being offered at the moment, but who knows? So, but of course, we must not be content with that. The big potential gains now both countries are in services. The mutual recognition of qualifications. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. America is not going to give us such a deep access into their service industries. Neither should we go all into the American service industry either. That's certainly for sure, because that would mean a lot of deregulation in banking industries, financial markets, insurance stuff. We should not go in that direction whatsoever. Anyway, in the meantime, trade deal or no trade deal, we need to be more agile. We need to make as opposed to announcing hard choices. There are 6 immediate tests whether Starmer is, of course, generally ready to adopt to this new world order. First is spending. We can't hope to compete with the revenue-consuming part of our economy as large as the revenue part generating it. There are only so many pensioners, civil servants, and benefit claimants that each private sector worker can carry. So then what? what do you recommend? There's I think we should be expanding this. I think we should be taking that tax money and really investing it. And that's where an industrial plan comes into some of this stuff. So Social Security and the NHS and interest payments are our 3 largest budget items. Any politicians who talks about spending restraint while pretending that welfare and healthcare remain untouched is being dishonest. We must reduce our ballooning liabilities in public sector pensions and indeed the sickness benefits. That is insane. Liz Kendall, the most impressive minister in the cabinet, has announced plans that will now slow the rise in the number of people claiming to be too ill to work because of mental health. We need to now, but slowing the rise is, of course, not enough. We need to return at least to the very much levels of the population before early 2020, before lockdown, habitually, and chunk of the population to claiming handouts. Well, we must also acknowledge the amount of job losses that went on in 2020 as well. And that also 2020 had a lot of knock-on effects on people's mental health. Anyway, second, NHS reform. Because the Tories had no NHS policy beyond higher spending, the fruit is not so much low hanging as now heaped up in gargantuan mounds. Labour could introduce a European-style insurance system, or at least charge for some procedures. It was, after all, a previous Labour government that placed most opticians and dentists in the private sector. Has that worked out well? Open to interpretation. And again, what European style health system? What country should we be following there? Again, he doesn't say. But that is implicit that we should be ending the NHS as free at the point of use. And once you start down that slippery road, that's when you end up with a full insurance style system. And that is what we certainly must push back against on that. Third, strategic tax cuts. Starting with taxes on employment and investment, reversing the national insurance rise would preserve our 30-year record for now structurally low unemployment. All that national insurance rise is going to go into the NHS. It is going to go into paying for the social services. We have a rapidly aging population. How does Daniel Hannan propose to deal with that rapidly aging population? At the moment, you notice he is saying nothing about that because Daniel Hannan does not care about that rapidly aging population. Anyway, Labour should also drop the taxes that bring in little to no revenue, including VAT on schools. Again, that brings in quite a lot, actually. Ending non-dom privileges. Again, they absolutely should end those non-dom privileges. Or do you want to ending the non-dom privileges? But there you go. Millionaires are currently fleeing at the rate of 1 per 45 minutes, leaving the rest of us to pick up their share of the tab. Again, please cite me that, where one apparently millionaire is leaving one every 45 minutes. One millionaire leaving every 45 minutes. That's an insane. Like, I don't believe the math on that. That is wrong. That seems to me a pretty extreme. But again, I would like to see Daniel Hannan's evidence to back that up. So, fourth will be deregulation. Starmer should, of course, start by shelving his determined employment rights bill. again, that bill gives so many more people more rights in their employment and protections from their employers. Why should you get rid of that? Anyway, fifth, net zero. It is mad to try and decarbonize the grid by 2030. Yes, let's work for lower emissions, but not by bankrupting ourselves while the rest of the world continues to burn coal. Why not aim for that? I think that is a good thing to aim for. Even if we don't reach it by 2030, I think we should still be ambitious to try and reach it by that. But again, this is the backslide that you've seen a lot of the stuff that Kimmy Badnock and a couple of these, the Conservatives is trying to do. Well, yeah, we should try and lower emissions, but not if it bankrupts us. Not if it bankrupts us. So, sixth, he continues, and most urgently, Labour should drop any notion of handing away strategic territory and paying for the privilege. The biggest change in the world order, the change to which Starmer refers, is the replacement of the supranational jurisdiction with power politics. This is what you guys did. Like, the selling of the Chagas Islands was yours. Why? But there you go. We shouldn't follow international rule and politics, but Anyway, in such a world, it is now determined to weaken our strategic position at the behest of the Chinese and Russian judges. It wasn't Chinese and Russian judges that decided it. Ah! Anyway, Mauritius has reportedly yet again demanded even more cash. Cash, that is, now for taking over territory which had already been handsomely paid for by renouncing it in 1965. It has, in other words, given Starmer one last chance to pull out of the debacle. With the power and prestige now suddenly mattering more, this is now the first most important part where the test will ever truly change course, or let's see if it is serious. And of course, I want to go down to some of these comments because not all these comments are, of course, in line with what Daniel Hannan has said. Someone has said here to our American cousins. Hanan's dream of now bringing together the five great Anglosphere democracies in diplomatic, military, and economic union is now over and is not coming back. The fundamental policy and cultural belief of Lord Hanan's life is absolutely shattered irrevocably. And it is. It is. That's what Hanan's dream was for to do, and that is now gone. This is why he is spiraling out of control on so much stuff on this at the moment. I assume the annexation of Canada against its wishes was not part of Hanan's plans, and the survival of US democracy is not a concern. Rereading the first paragraph, I would be genuinely interested in reading Lord Hanan's thoughts on this in another article. It must be a very painful time. And as someone else points out here, his lordship has unfortunately been wrong about all the major issues in the last decade. And what must have been a very particularly painful for him was the realization that Remainers were now right all along. As someone points out here as well, this man is absolutely shameless. Instead of apologizing, he continues to now deliberately mislead, e.g., our largest trading partner. He personally is now responsible for our current very weak situation, but we are talking about a fanatic, someone who values ideology over pragmatism. Why else would he not mention working closely with the EU now as our number one priority? Someone else says here, dear reader, a very gentle reminder for you that the author of this piece predicted that by 2025, the European Union would have had a unified tax system, a police force, and an army, and that Ireland, Denmark, and the Netherlands would have also left the EU. For similar writers in the genre, you may well, of course, also wish to sample Hans Christian Andersen. Yeah, this was all in that Brexit the movie stuff. Oh yeah, Ireland, Denmark, and Netherlands, they'll also leave the EU as well. And oh yeah, they're going to have a unified tax system, not happened. A unified police force, not happened. Unified army, not happened. Although, who knows at this moment in time in the world that was going at the moment. But even then, I still think a unified EU army is a long, long way off down the pipeline on that. But yeah, he is absolutely crazy on this. Someone else says here, content like and dogmatism as usual from Danan. Our largest trading partner is, of course, the EU at about 45% of our exports, very much triple of that of our trade with the US. Funnily enough, Daniel was the one who worked for years to pull up barriers with the EU. I'll try to find where the other one was now. But yeah, it's actually quite interesting that a lot of people are blaming Hanan and calling it out for being wrong. Yeah. The editor is surely failing in his duty of care for this columnist and allowing him to continue with his very humiliating pieces. Um, but yeah, Daniel Hannan absolutely crashing out at the moment, massively so. not only on Twitter, but elsewhere as well. And like I say, he's been wrong about everything. Every prediction he has made about this, what was meant to happen for this past decade, completely wrong. Remember, as he said, and as someone rightly pointed out, by now, Ireland, the Netherlands, Denmark should have also have left the EU. Like I say, these Trump tariffs are the final nail in the Brexit coffin. And you've seen the Brexiteers desperately try to spin it as, oh, this is somehow a Brexit benefit. But again, there's still a lot of damage to the UK in these Trump tariffs itself. Where we are now is sort of, I think people are coming to the realization, yeah, we are just a middling European economy. But guess what? That's not a bad thing to be a middle European economy. The Netherlands, Denmark, the Baltic states, you know, there's nothing wrong with being, a middle power. But if you want more power, then the way to do that is to group with other countries. Anyway, so Daniel Hannan continuing to crash out, and it's absolutely lovely to see. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below as well, because I'm sure I missed some of the stuff that he said as well. And that, like I say, Daniel Hannan says a lot of stuff sometimes in his articles, and sometimes I do miss it. So if I do miss something, do point out in the comments down below as well. But as always, thank you very much for watching as well. And of course, we'll see you all next time.